Today I'm going to show you how I've fixed my Felix sweater. I have gotten so far with the raglan increases on this beautiful purple Felix sweater in Kimmitt Croft fiber Rambouillet 2-ply worsted. And if you've knit this sweater before, you will know that your raglan should come across with a center stitch all the way down. And when I was going through my stitches as I got to the end of my raglan, I discovered that on the on one of the shoulders that I had missed a stitch, and it went, the only term you've got is cattywampus. So instead of coming down this nice straight line, it will go curved this way. And because I did it, I think around this second or third increase, it really got magnified towards the end. So the sweater was not going to fit right with me doing this. So I'm going to turn and show you what I did. So I have unraveled my sweater. It actually was wrong all the way back to this repeat right here. And I've already figured out how to fix the first, but I had to take all of these stitches off the needle and a few over on this side off the needle. And so I'm going to demonstrate to you how I figured out how to get these yarn over increases and get my stitches back on the needles. So the first thing you have to realize is where your stitch increase is in the fabric of the sweater. So you'll notice that because the raglan increase, the first yarn over is the first stitch of the increase, you have to do some work to get these three increases going in the fabric going before you can run your stitches along. And you'll notice through here, I don't know if you can see it very well, let me zoom in a little bit more. There's some unevenness in this last row of stitches. I would not worry about that because I actually did all of these stitches to this point right here. And so they are evening out as I go along. So don't, the important part is not to get your threads tangled. The rest, the tension will come. I am a little bit worried that I'll get to the end and some of my stitches won't look even, but you'll just, I'll just have to deal with that as I go along. And all else fails, I will just have to frog back to this section. But I just wanted to show you how I fixed this with basically a crochet hook and these actually these nice little things I got from Flox. I don't remember what the name is. I'll put the name of it on the screen here up towards this area here. But I got these from Flox. These are those nice twisty elastic, almost pipe cleaner items that, because they've got some circumference on them, they're nice for the stitch holders because they kind of keep the tension, but they're also very easy to, if you'll notice, to stitch and hold. So I'm using these to place get some stitches started. And so I've got a couple extra here, and then I've got a basic crochet hook. So the Felix I'm knitting right now is on, I think it's on a size 10, 10 and a half actually, needle. This is, which is a size 6 millimeter. Is it size 6? 6.5. This crochet hook was 4.5. It seems to be working out well. I'll have to do some more experimenting if I should have used like a 6.5 size crochet hook or not. But this is working well for me because it is keeping my stitches tighter I'm just going to keep doing this. So here's what I did. Let me zoom back out. So I've got a little bit of room to work on the screen here. So like I mentioned, this first stitch has to be created. This yarn over stitch has to be created, but you can't create the rest of the stitches going down because you won't get your tension right along the side here, is what I discovered as I was moving things. So what I have to do is create my yarn overs first, and then start doing the stitches back down to my needles. So I will create these first 3 yarn overs, and then after the 3rd yarn over, I will then crochet hook this first set of stitches back down, and then go from there. So I'm gonna start doing the yarn overs on the corresponding side to create the V pattern in the yarn overs that we have in the previous repeats. So I've got my stitches all the way through the center here, and the first yarn over goes right here next to this center stitch. I've got these stitch holders that I've gotten from Phlox that I really like, and I'm going to unhook those now, and I'm going to create the first yarn over by crocheting these 2 ladders together. So first yarn over created right there, and then I'm going to grab the stitch right below it to get my anchor point for my next yarn over, as well as the stitch below, the ladder below that, to get the 2 anchors that I had just previous, that like I just had on my previous yarn over. And that helps me keep all of my stitches straight. So I've got my yarn over here, and then 2 stitches here, and I'm gonna put one of these stitch holders in place. I like these a little bit better than the lantern or the lamp style stitch holders that you see that are like safety pins, just partly because these have some circumference to them. It holds them in place while you're fiddling around with things. All right, so got my yarn over here. I've got to create my second yarn over of these 3. So again, crochet hook, again these 2 ladders, and I created my second yarn over, and then I'm going to grab the ladder right below it, and this can get a little fiddly if you have to twist it around or do it. And then so that gives me my first ladder right here, you can see that right here, and then I'm going to create my second ladder right here. So I've got my 2 ladders there, and again I'm going to put this onto a stitch holder while I create my 3rd yarn over. Okay, so as I showed earlier, that requires this stitch, this ladder right here, which is a little harder to get at, and then the ladder right below it. So we're going to grab those 2, create the yarn over. Sometimes the hole's not quite, you'll have to big enough, you'll have to play around with it. And then I don't have to put a stitch marker on this because I am now going to stitch this all the way down to my needle. And on the left hand side, it's a little trickier, mostly because I'm a righty. I'm holding the needle in my right hand. But what you can do is kind of hold these threads between your fingers to give it a little bit of tension. You don't need a lot, just to kind of hold them in place, and you can just grab and pull through. Well, I said you could do it. Here we go. And it does take some fiddling around with, takes a little bit of patience, and you have to be relaxed doing this. If you try and do it while you're tense, it's not going to work out well for you. So I've got my first stitch made, and then I'm going to grab the next one. And don't worry if you get things tangled, if it doesn't look right, there's nothing stopping you from pulling back because you've already pulled all the stitches loose already. Okay, so I've got the next one, and again, make sure you're not tangling these. Make sure they're kind of straight when you're doing it. I've had them tangled. It becomes very quickly apparent when you're doing the next row that they've gotten tangled. But just keep them kind of held between your fingers. I've got it between my index finger and my middle finger here, and just pull it through. Again, pull it through. Again, pull it through, and then you can just adjust to give yourself a little more room to work with. Pull through, pull through. And there's a reason why I was holding on to that thread. There we go. You can let that one go. Pull through. Pull through. Pull through. Pull through and pull through. Okay, so I've gotten all of these stitches back on. I'm going to put this back on my needle, and what you'll see when you look at it, and you want to take a look and see if you've gotten all your threads kind of straight, is you've got this yarn over right down here. Let's see if I can get this better. You've got a yarn over right here. It's not a huge one, but it will open up. Especially with blocking. And then you've got all the associated stitches from that increase that you've now created. And the beautiful part is you've already created the next yarn over, so it should be fairly simple from there, that you just grab the next stitch off this stitch holder. Put that off to the side. And you're just going to repeat. And what I found was, as you go along, this looks a little bit uneven. Don't fiddle with this too much. This will straighten out as you grab the threads. So I've got my stitch on right here, and I'm going to do the threads again just like I did earlier with the yarn. Oh, dropped it. So one stitch, another stitch, next stitch, next stitch. When I was originally doing this, like I said, I twisted the yarn because I was twisting these ladders because I wasn't holding it in place like this. And this is what I found for technique wise was the best way to hold everything, was to just kind of hold on to them and let them go as I went along. So next ladder, next ladder, next ladder, next ladder, and the final ladder. And then slip that back onto the needle. And you'll see, it was looking a little wild there on this one row. It's not perfect, but it was looking a little wild there on that one row. There's my yarn over right there, and now I've got it's looking a little more even. All right, so last stitch of the yarn overs for my pattern. So I'm going to grab this stitch, and my first ladder is right here. If you can see that right there. Make sure you've got everything straight. When you're getting into this little kind of narrow area, and I'm about to lose stitches, if you get into this little narrow area, this is where you run into problems making sure that you've got the right thread. So this is the yarn that I want to grab. So I'm going to grab that one, and I'm going to grab the next one. The nice thing about that is you don't have too much yarn to have it flopping around. It makes it a little bit easier to make the crochet stitches. Grab that one, grab that, and I'm just creating those knit stitches as I go along. I keep calling them crochet because it's a crochet hook, but it's simply a knit stitch. Knit, knit. Now I'm going to start holding on those like I was earlier so I don't get them cross. Get them straight. So there we go. And grab that one thread right there. Okay. And grab that one. And grab that one. Grab that one. Grab the next. Grab the next. Let's see. Oh, yep, there we go. The next one. Ended up with a little bit too much less tension on there. There we go. And then the next one, and then the next one. Okay. So I have now gotten my increases associated with these 3 yarn overs created, because that's essentially what I've done. Is these are new stitches that were created with the yarn over, and I've created all of the rows that went with those now. Okay, so now I have to then work on this center row to go down to do my next repeat, and I think I only have one more repeat. So how do I know how many stitches to create? Well, if you look at above, let's see if I can get this. Zoom in a little bit more. I don't think that's going to work. Okay, there we go. So if you look, here's my 2 yarn overs, and I've got a stitch here. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches before my next repeat with the yarn overs. So right now I need to create some more stitches, and I need to do 1, 2, and then I need to create, I think it's 5, but usually I end up having to double check everything. So 1, 2, and see, I'm going to grab these ladders here in the center. So these are the ones that are kind of smallish, because they're the last ones you're creating. These are the last stitches you're creating of those rows. And just pull them through, and see, this is where that fabric is starting to tighten up, because your stitches are straightening out. And so I've got, well, now I've got, let me put that back on the stitch holder. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This would be number 7. And I want to go actually a little bit past it, because again, I'm creating those ladders to start creating the yarn over. So this should be number 7, and then I want to create that place where I can create the yarn over. So I'm going to do this, and this will be the first ladder of that yarn over, and then this will be the next one, creating that second ladder for that yarn over. Okay, and so I'm going to put that back onto the stitch holder here. Aren't these great? They're just so easy. And then I can go on and create my yarn overs just like I did before on the left hand side. And so I should have a fairly clean piece of fabric by that point. I'm looking at it, and right now it's looking pretty even with the rest of the fabric that I've got. In fact, the center looks pretty good. So I'm actually pretty pleased with how this fix is going. I'm going to stop here and I'm going to finish up, and then I'll show you a screenshot of what the final fabric looks like if all else goes well. Okay? Thanks for watching. Well, it took some doing, but I've got all my stitches back on. I did all my counts here. I will say that my tension isn't on my gauge isn't quite what I was expecting it to be right through here. But if you remember during my video, I said don't worry about the gauge as much. I can do some adjustments, take some individual stitches off, but here's where we're at. If it had been a smaller section, if I'd only done one repeat wrong, I probably would have just done that section again. But because I had done so many, maybe I would have been better off frogging back. But it was a good experiment, and I proved that I could do it. So here it is. And I'll have to think twice about doing it again the next time. Thanks everybody for watching, and happy knitting.